So we have time for questions from the audience at the end, but I thought it would be good to ask some questions of our esteemed panel as well, and maybe get their opinion on things. And I really wanted to kick off by firstly saying congratulations, everybody. It's a really fantastic film, very, very powerful, and isn't possible without, obviously Debbie's in fantastic work, but the trust and honesty given by the participants is incredibly powerful, and I think makes it such a wonderful thing to watch and such an impactful piece. And I really wanted to know, how did this start? At what point did you come to the story, Debbie? And then how did you find the families that you featured and gain their trust to allow them to kind of open up to you?
So prior to this, I made a short film called Peekaboo, which some of you here have seen, which was a short 15-minute drama fictional piece that I wrote about stillbirth, and that film I made because two different friends lost babies in different circumstances, and it was just something that I hadn't really known anything about before. So I started looking into it and was very, very surprised by the statistics around baby loss and how common it was, and also this, terrible silence and stigma around the issue. So I made Peekaboo first of all, and then within the journey and the time it took me to make that film, I'd met certain families and come across certain people already, like Lou and Julie, when we were doing the research, and I just really felt like Peekaboo wasn't going to make enough of an impact with it being a short film, so I decided I wanted to do a feature-length documentary. And I think because of Peekaboo, I mean, maybe you two can speak a bit about this, but I think there was already a certain degree of trust within the baby loss community because I'd sort of made that film and completed it, and so it was actually quite an easy, smooth transition from that film into this one. We actually had lots and lots and lots of families that wanted to take part, and it was about trying to find the right sort of storylines that work together with each other. But do you want to say how it was for you, if you felt like it was easy enough to kind of trust us and work with us and that kind of thing? Julie's losing her voice.
I've lost my voice, I'm really sorry. Initially it was really hard to let you in. No, we were like, no, we've given you enough. But then we thought, no, we need to share our special sons with everybody, and make everybody aware that they existed, not just to us but to everybody. So, once you came round and it was okay, I felt relaxed and we could say what we wanted to. Whether it's hard-hitting or not, it's life.
I think for me it wasn't really a problem because I very much wear my heart on my sleeve and speak my mind anyway. Matt didn't want to be involved in the film at all initially, did he? And a lot of the interview that was done in my living room, that was all done initially. Matt had gone out and he came in, he thought you'd be gone, didn't he? And he came in and we said, we're just going down to the cemetery, and he did actually come along. And then he did get a bit more involved. But for me, I had no problem speaking, saying exactly how I felt really, because I just knew that you'd be sensitive with it really. And you have been really sensitive with it, yeah. And even with the editing, we all know that things can be edited to tell a totally different story. We all had the opportunity for Debbie to come to our homes with the DVD to watch the film. And funnily enough, I was all up for it, but Matt said, no, it's done now, we'll wait till it's actually on. So we trusted you. Yeah.
And how did you get your producers to trust you in this long journey that you've been on?
I'm going to pass that one over to Colin because I just got offered a dream job and went for it.
Well, I think it was Deb's and her passion. I think on this stage with the Q&A, was short, and I think it kind of came from that. And Deb's just, it was a story she was meant to tell, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy, and we knew it was going to be a really long journey. We didn't quite know it was going to be as long as it was, but you know, that's what you sign up for, isn't it? You know, you've got to tell a story, you've got to tell it correctly, and people's lives have to develop and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I had a lot of confidence in Debs, I suppose, and Debs is the driver behind it.
And it is a long period of time. I mean, you follow people from really just after they're losing their children through to 2 years of their recovery. How did you maintain those relationships with them?
I mean, to be honest, it really was. It felt very much like a friendship with all the families involved. We did just become friends, and I think we're all fairly close, really, to say, you know, that we didn't know each other before it started. We did have issues with two of the storylines that were trickier, because when for Juliet and Matt, they were going through another pregnancy, and that did become, you know, really stressful for them. And I think as the pregnancy progressed, they, you know, became just, you know, understandably so, but very worried about what was going to happen with the next baby. And I think that a lot of their family and friends were kind of saying to them, why are you making this film, drop out, you know, don't. So it did become quite fraught, and we just had to really pull back and listen to what was okay and what wasn't okay for them. So we started, like, before we go there to film, I'd send them an email with a whole list of, can I ask you this, can we look at that, and they'd sort of say yes or no to certain things, and we just had to work around what was comfortable for them. And then with Eve, she did actually drop out after about, I think we filmed with her 3 times, and then she dropped out, and it was really upsetting because I really loved Eve and her storyline, and I wanted her to be in the film, but we didn't have an ending for her story. So we didn't know if we could, we thought we'd probably have to take her story out. But then just as we were nearly finished editing, because I'd stayed in touch with Eve all along, and she got back in touch and said that she actually wanted to do some more filming, and she wanted me to go and film Scattering the Ashes, which was, you know, a really special moment to be part of, actually. And it was actually a really beautiful day, because we really supported her, the whole crew, and it was like a really lovely day for all of us, and we really sort of looked after her, and she really enjoyed that event, actually. So it was wonderful for us, because we got a fantastic ending, but it was also really good for Eve, because she got some support and some friendship to do something that was quite important to her.
That's brilliant. And in terms of your whistle stop tour of the UK that you're on at the moment, and every night you're in a different city, and I've been following you on Facebook and Twitter, and I don't know how you've managed to maintain sanity, to be honest, but you're getting crowds out everywhere, and in places that don't normally play films like this. They're not big kind of independent cinemas like the Showroom, they're mainstream cinemas. And I'm really interested in the way that you've approached the kind of the campaign element of your film, and how you've managed to use kind of advocates and ambassadors for the film. How have you found those people to kind of go out there and actually help you promote the film?
I think because there's been like a bit of a double-edged sword with this one, because there's such a massive resistance on the one hand to the film, just as much of a resistance as there is to the issue. So we've battled with that one, but the other side of that is that people that are interested in it are massively supportive. So we kind of, if people are supportive, then they're really around to help us. So we've worked very closely with Tommy's baby charity, and also with the local SANS groups, not so much the main SANS group, but the local ones in different towns and cities. So with every screening, I mean, sometimes we're not able to bring the families that are part of the film if we're in Glasgow or Belfast or somewhere like that. So we've contacted local baby loss support charities, usually SANS, and somebody will come to represent you know, the families that aren't here. We'll have people speaking on behalf of the parents and have people speaking on behalf of befrienders or bereavement midwives. And that's, you know, worked incredibly well. So there's a lot of the cinemas wouldn't programme us. There was only the Showroom and 5 others that would directly programme us in the country. So we went through Our Screen, which is an organisation where you hire the cinema and then you have to sell in advance a lot of tickets for the screening to go ahead, which was incredibly difficult because you're constantly having to promote it on Twitter and Facebook and things and nag people to book early. But in nearly all of those, we've had amazing attendance or sometimes sold out, and I think that's because a lot of the programmers were very nervous about showing a film with this subject matter, and, you know, said things like, there's no interest in this film, nobody will come and see it, and then we sold out. So I think, you know, that was amazing, and that's happened at pretty much every screening.
Yeah, because I mean, if you imagine that anybody that's ever come in contact with anyone who's been through baby loss, which is probably most people, to be honest, and their friends and family, that's actually a fairly big audience, and yeah, I'm pretty sure they'd be interested.
Yeah. We've also had really big amounts of midwives as well. We've had a lot of midwives in the audience, and that's been really great because they're the people that will, you know, be hands-on with issues to do with baby loss in the future and could prevent, you know, the loss of a baby. And a lot of them have, in the feedback that we've been given, have said that, you know, this has really helped them to think about their practice and how they work. So that's been really great.
Yeah, well, I was wondering about the use of the film as an educational aid in a sense, and not in a kind of directly, you know, screen it to children sense, but in a kind of raising awareness, breaking down that taboo, and whether there is a place for it within medical education. Have you kind of found that, or?
We've got lots of plans for that. Do you want to talk about this one of you two? Yeah, we've got lots of plans.
We'll be offering, after we've done the cinema run, obviously we'll have a DVD and pay-per-view online release, but we're also going to build a package of materials around the film, which can go out to midwife groups, community centres, rainbow clinics, anywhere else where it might be useful, and try to sort of spread the word, it's not just about prevention. We're never going to eliminate all baby loss, but what we can really work to improve is helping parents to recover, not to say they're going to get over it, but that they can move forwards, help them to make memories and help them to process the grief in as positive way as possible.
And how does that feel for you ladies, kind of thinking that maybe your stories will actually impact on people's training and their experiences as midwives and doctors?
Yeah, I mean, I lost my first baby in 2004, and there was no social media, there was no Facebook or anything, there was no support other than the local SANS group which I went to. It wasn't for me at that time. They were much further down in their grief, whereas I'd got 3 other children and a nursery with no baby in it, and I just felt as though I wanted to die. But there was no help, no positivity for me. I would just sit for hours in a dark room. And now, if my story can help people realise that people need so much more support long term, it never goes away, ever. You know, I can watch that film again and again and again and think, God, it's so powerful. We've lived that, we're living that every single day. And just because I've had my rainbow son, who I love dearly, and my children, I love them all, I have 2 little boys that are missing. Same with Lauren. And people just need to know we don't get over it, we learn to live with it, and it shapes who we are. And we can be quite blunt at times, and You know, we have walls. You have to break these walls down to get to know us. Debbie will vouch for that. But I'll let you speak.
I think it's great that it will be used for training. I mean, I've been involved with Derby Sands, obviously, and part of that is I have told my story literally hundreds of times at sort of Derby Uni, Nottingham Uni, and in the hospital. And now I've stepped back a bit, somebody else is doing that. But generally, all the midwives want to hear about is the actual experience and what to do at the time, but I think it's really, really important for them to see the film, because it, you know, some parents will say to them, do parents go on to have other babies? Do some parents choose not to have another baby after this? And if they can say, you know, well, actually, I know of a family, you know, it might help.
Yeah, to kind of offer them opportunities to actually...
Because everybody assumes that you lose a baby and you'll go on and have another one, and we didn't. So, you know, I had to have a very different focus, I suppose you could say. I know ladies in our group that lost a baby and had to have a hysterectomy at the same time, so they can't have any children. You know, that's completely different again. There's so many different stories out there, but yeah, if the film could be shown, just to show, you know, it shows 7 people's experiences, doesn't it? I think it'd be helpful.
I was particularly pleased about the certificate that the film received, and I was quite worried for a while actually about how the kind of certification of this film would be approached by the BBFC, who are you know, responsible for all kind of film certificates in the country. And it actually got a 12A certificate, which I think really does open it up to be used in a kind of much more universal sense. It allows that opportunity to do a little warning of kind of like, this isn't going to be an easy ride for you. But what it does is not make it another level of taboo. And I think that's a very brave move from them, and actually they should be, you know, congratulated in that, because they're not always known for their kind of forward thinking. And it's really brilliant. So how did you actually speak to them about that and go through something?
Well, there was a cloud that had a silver lining in that particular instance. We had some technical problems, which meant that I had to go in and out of BBFC a few times. And during going in and out of BBFC, we built up a relationship with them, and I think they understood why we were making the film and why we wanted to have that sort of certification. And I just think that this film has been blessed in lots of ways, with lots of coincidences. There have been a lot of struggles. That was one of the struggles, but at the end of it, there was that certification, and when we got it, we just punched the sky and thought, yeah, it's brilliant. And so relationships, again, is what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of working on it over years. I think we should probably open up to the audience. So there is a microphone at the back of the room. If anybody has a question for anybody on the stage, do stick up your hand. Don't be shy. In the middle, I think.
Hi, I wanted to first of all say how powerful and really, it's a really great documentary. Really powerful. I have a question, because the reason it resonates with me is because I had 2 early miscarriages, one at 11 weeks and one at 4 weeks, and the first one was in 1990 and the second one was in 96. And it had a massive, massive impact on my life, and it had a massive impact on the way I parented my son, who was born in 2002. And I was just wondering whether any of the stories that you were looking at were about early miscarriage, because one of the things I found so hard was not having anything to hold on to, and it was so much. I just started to build up the hopes, and then it was gone, and there was no sort of paperwork, and there was nothing to hold, and it was in 1990 totally dismissed, '96 a little bit more recognised that we both needed some help, but it had such a massive impact on my mental health and the way my relationships that so the question is, did you look at early, the impact of early miscarriage as well as later stillbirths?
Thanks for that. We did decide at the beginning of this that we were mainly looking at stillbirth because that wasn't something that had really been looked at before. That doesn't mean to say that we don't understand that, the loss of an earlier, miscarriage isn't still incredibly difficult. But we chose to look at stillbirth. We included Beth and Steve's storyline because I wanted to look at one that was technically a miscarriage, even though I didn't really see that much difference between the two, which felt important to include. But we knew that had been looked at before in other films, and we were specifically looking at stillbirth because it hadn't really. And there is a film a friend of mine actually made last year that was on TV, which you might be able to access somewhere, called First Heartbeat. And it was on TLC channel last year. I'll see if I can get her to send me a link. But that was Lisa's own personal story. She's had something like 7 miscarriages at all different stages. And it's a very brave film because it was her own story. And but I'll see if I can find a way for you to watch that. So, but it was a decision we made to look really at this issue.
Can I just firstly say thank you for sharing your story with us. It's really good to be able to see that side of things. We're student midwives ourselves, and I think we've come for an insight into what families do go through. As a way forward for our own practice in the future, is there anything that you think as parents that the midwives could have said or done differently that might have helped you?
You're probably asking the wrong people, in that my loss was nearly 8 years ago and your losses were 10 and 11 years, were they? Yeah. Things have changed massively. I mean, I lost Lauren at Derby. At the time I lost Lauren, there was no bereavement care, no memory box, there was nothing. My midwife was quite empathetic, but she was hard. Things have changed massively. With SANS, I've spoken to a lot of student midwives, and what I would advise, if on your course you haven't already had somebody from SANS come and talk to you and share their story. I think you're training here at Sheffield. Yeah, sadly I don't, Sheffield does not have a SANS group, but your nearest one is Chesterfield. If you engage with Chesterfield SANS, I know they would come and talk. That's what you need. You need a group of parents to come, to bring their memory boxes and to share their stories, probably stories from like the last 2 or 3 years that are more relevant to today and to today's practice.
Yeah. When I had Jack, obviously we were led to room 1, which was basically the room where you went and had your it's just a normal labour room, but room 1 was the one where the dead babies were born when it wasn't occupied by other parents, and that was adjoining a labour suite where the lady was having the baby next door. So my entire labour was listening to her labour and her baby cry as I was holding my dead baby. But I do believe that this is moving on now, where people are realising that, it's hard for parents to go in and go out empty-handed. We were given a memory box. I was very fortunate. I had a most amazing midwife who had suffered a stillbirth at 41 weeks. So she told me what to expect: skin slip, the fact he's not cold when he's born, which is what you think. I don't know if you did. I thought he'd be born cold because he's dead. But I was, just listen, don't judge, and just take your time. I had a student midwife in with me on the 2nd because my midwife again delivered Harrison, and she asked if she could come in to see, and I said yeah, she needs to know shit happens, and that's what I told her.
But the previous screenings, we've had that question come up before, and we've had sometimes we've had bereavement midwives on the panel, and what I've heard a lot is people just recommending that you just try to be as human as you possibly can, and not feel like you have to have this air of professionalism, and that if you feel like crying, that's fine, and that really to just be a human being about it. And that's the best thing you can do, I think.
And engage with the baby loss community now before it happens, so that when it, you're doing the right thing, you're here, so you're already a step ahead. But engage with that community, because I imagine that as midwives, it's something that's likely to happen in your careers. And I just think if you could engage and be able to guide people to where they'll find support, then you're sort of forearmed in a way to deal with it.
And can I also say, look after the dads as well. If there is a dad there, please look after them, because my husband suffered dreadfully because he saw me suffer, and he was, grieving for his son. And all attention is on the mum. The second time he collapsed.
Not in my situation, I have
we
to
know.
say. Well, it's not always on the mum.
No.
It's not always.
No, but on the second time he collapsed in shock, and I just said, just look after him. I couldn't care less about me, but please ask the dad, how are you? Can I get you something? And involve them. I wasn't, they didn't tell me. I regret not seeing my baby's bottoms, their feet, simple things. I regret that to my dying day. So try and advise them to make memories, because that's all you've got. That's it. End of.
Thank you.
I think the care, it has changed massively in, certainly I can only speak for the last 7.5 years, and regarding the dads now, we have loads of dads come to our SANS group, and the care of the dads is amazing, certainly at Derby, and the people who come to our group from some of the Nottingham hospitals as well, it has changed a lot. And the care of Matt, I think, was amazing as well. Matt would say the midwife, obviously she had to give him a lot of attention initially. He did leave the room for a while, but he did come back again. And when he came back, she involved him. She was telling him what to do. So I think the issue is it's afterwards, and the dads that won't talk, the dads that won't open up, the dads that get offered counselling through their work, through their GP, and they refuse to go. That's one of the big issues, because it is available now. There's loads of counselling available now, but sadly so many dads still won't go.
But I heard in Belfast on Saturday that somebody was telling me that if you want to go and see like a psychologist, if you're struggling with depression and stuff afterwards, that the dads can only have the counselling if the mums agree to it, and if the mum says she doesn't want it, the dads don't get any, which I thought was absolutely unbelievable. So there's still a lot of improvements there. I think that and from what the dads have been saying at the Q&As, because sometimes we've had dads on the panel, that if you ask them how they are and they say I'm fine, ask them how are you really, because most of them will say I'm fine, and sometimes they need a bit more encouragement to talk, and they don't always want to, and that's fine too, but sometimes to ask more than once. Yeah.
I think mums as well, I would always say Most people would look at me and say, oh, Lou coped so well, she's so strong, she did all that for Sans. But people did stop asking, how are you, very soon afterwards. And if you appear to be coping, people assume you are. So it's asking the mums and the dads, treating them as equals, that's the thing. Because they both need the same amount of support usually.
There's a lady down here, yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for a very powerful, very moving film. I had a number of questions, but in fact I'll just pick up on the last points you just made. Because I wondered what proportion, or whether you've got any statistics really, of how many couples who've suffered a stillbirth actually break up. So, you know, you've talked about look after the dads, which of course is very important, and give equal treatment to the mum. But I wondered if it led to a great deal of breakups as well, and you know, whether there's any particular support in that particular way to help to cope with that. But also I was very interested to see in your film that you talked about the children of families who had experienced, your children for example, and I thought it was really important in how much attention you might not be giving in Sans to the other family members and the grandparents. And I thought that was really good in the film to have brought that out. And I just wondered whether there's anything you can say more about that.
I think regarding the stats, I don't know if anybody, I don't have any official stats at all. Certainly within our Sans group, what we've seen is it's about a quarter of our couples split up afterwards. Sometimes almost immediately, sometimes quite a way down the line. But I don't know what the official statistics are at all. With grandparents and children, certainly our Derby Sans group, and I think most Sans groups, we have grandparents at the group as well. We very much involve them, and when we do all our events, they are very much family events, and members who have lost their first child know that when they come to our events there will sometimes be other babies there, there will be other children there. It's never a problem. But yeah, it's really important to involve the whole wider family. Yeah. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, I think that's great, because I think, you know, this idea of a couple split up as a result of the stillbirth and helping them is really important, because obviously we don't want family breakups. But I think, you know, this idea of other children in the family being affected. So this may be the question of educational role in schools. You know, that there would be children in the schools who've lost family members to stillbirth, or cousins or something, you know. Some work with teachers in the schools might be helpful.
Yeah, I lost my first son. My daughter was at senior school, and she's not featured in the film, but she was offered a bit of counselling, but not very much. It was basically she could have a chat with the teacher and that was it. The boys were never offered anything. Alex, who's with me now, he was never offered anything. He was too young. But you know, we include our boys in our life. They may not be here, but none of them forget their siblings. And like I say, it was very important for us because they were excited to have a brother, and then for us to have to tell them that, you know, the baby's dead. as hard as hearing it. I think we've done an alright job. They're really well-rounded children, and everything they do, they remember their brothers. So, but yeah, they do need help.
So I was going to say, if you've got something to say, yeah?
I'll say it really quickly.
Okay.
With my son, he developed, not immediately afterwards, but a lot of behavioural issues and emotional problems. He's had to go under the CAMS team, and part of that, not all of it, has been put down, well, they've said because of losing his sister, and then his nanny, my mum, who I mentioned in the film. So at his school, when he was 7, for a whole year, a lady took him out of the classroom. She was just like a support assistant, and she did all memory type stuff with him regarding Lauren and my mum. It was brilliant, and at the end of the year he came home with a massive memory box with all pictures he'd drawn of them and pictures of them in heaven. You know, it was really lovely, and I think that really helped him, and it helped me as well, to be honest. Yeah.
There's a lady just behind there.
Yeah. Actually, I was interested your perspective on how blokes are, and I do agree with you that some men cope really, really well, and some don't, and some women cope really, really well. And so the emphasis, I mean, I think that Debbie, how you portrayed the men there, they did seem really incredibly open and very talking. You know, the typical male, they do clam up. My daughter had a stillbirth 3 months ago at 41 weeks. My daughter is incredibly strong. So at the time when it happened, she was in London, and it was very traumatic. You know, 1 minute she was saying she was just going into hospital, everything was fine, and then the call was, no, that's it. And now we're going to talk about how we move on from here. And then we went down to London the next day. First thing she said is, I'm so sorry, you know. And she was so upbeat, everything was fantastic. Her husband was on the floor. And then for the next, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks, he was really, really struggling, whereas she was doing everything and holding everything together. And so the focus was on him actually, not on her, because she was coping. She was doing superbly well. Obviously then what happens next is he has to go back to work, and he's now kind of moving on. And I think it's a bit like, you know, when one side of a partnership sinks and the other one compensates, there's a bit of that going off. And so she's now struggling because he's coming up. And strangely, a similar thing happened to my sister, because when my daughter was a baby, my sister had a cot death. Her son would have been the same age as my daughter. And my sister's very strong as well, and she just got over this. And actually, Lou, the problem that you were saying you've got with your son, she had behavioural problems with, there was the same age gap. So when her baby died at 19 weeks, and the age gap was similar, and he had all sorts of behavioural problems, and I think he sort of flipped at about 16, and then it all came out. You know, he just said about he'd been bottling all this up, and then everything went okay, but they hadn't talked. You know, and I think that might be the time then, you know, because this is like 30 some years ago, and people didn't talk, and certainly in the family we didn't talk. We never talked about it. But it's changed now. But I was interested to see in the film how talking the blokes were and how open they were. That's something that's
Probably been forced into it by their wives.
I mean, it's interesting because I think with Matt and Juliet's storyline particularly, you know, Juliet was like the stronger one in their relationship and more together, and Matt
definitely came over.
Yeah, Matt was much more emotional, and I thought it was amazing that he let that be shown on in the film, especially to say he's a police officer, and he was kind of really open to showing his emotions, which I thought was wonderful. And Juliet was a lot more composed than he was, but I guess it's different for every couple, every relationship or person, you know. So, but I think as Lou said, it's just about treating the mums and dads as equal, and I think that's the thing that people have to do, and how those individuals deal with it. You know, it's like any relationship, that's down to them, but as long as they've got the opportunity to be given equal consideration, you know.
Brilliant. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for questions. I just really wanted to end by asking, what's next for your film, Debbie? Kind of, what's the plan? How can people share this with their friends and family? And when are we going to be able to buy the DVD?
Sorry, will it be on television, Debbie?
That's the
Hi,
secret
Dan.
question.
Well, we have been trying really, really hard to get the film on TV. I really want it to be on TV because our challenge now is to get this film to a wider audience. Could I just ask for a really quick show of hands, just so as we know, how many people here have been affected by the loss of a baby fairly directly? Okay, and how many people here are midwives or student midwives? And how many people are other than those two groups? Okay. Well, there's more here that are other than those two groups, and usually at screenings it's either people that are affected by baby loss directly or a midwife. And our challenge is to try and get the film out there to a wider audience so that people actually can know about this issue, support people through it when it happens, because it will happen to somebody that you know, with the statistics as they are. So we've been trying really hard to get it on TV. We nearly did, but the BBC nearly went for it and then didn't quite. So we're going back to them after we've had all these screenings and the good attendance and the great feedback. We've also had fantastic reviews, which we were absolutely delighted about, getting such good reviews in the press. So we'll go back and we'll ask again if they can show it, and we hope that they will. If they don't, it will become available, as Polly said, as a sort of educational package where people can show the film in groups. We'll put it on VOD, on video on demand, so that people can watch it online, and DVD. All of those things have yet to come. Our situation is, financially, we don't have a single penny to get past this point. So we can't even make the DVDs at this stage. So we're applying for funding and you know, trying everything we can. So you can help us in a number of ways. Firstly, please give us your feedback. Secondly, if you're on Twitter, tweet about the film, give us your feedback online. Somebody at a screening last week started a petition. I don't know this person, but they started a petition to get the BBC to screen the film, and it's at nearly 10,000 signatures in a few days. So I'll tweet it later if you follow us on Twitter. Sign the petition, share it. You know, talk about it and do all you can to encourage people to watch it. And outside on the table as you leave, we've got a tin. If you want to make a donation, we really appreciate it, because just trying to even do these screenings, we're travelling around and all that kind of stuff, which we don't have the money for. So anything you can do to help us, please do, but mainly talking about the film, signing the petition and trying to get word out, really.
And if people have friends around the country, they can use the Our Screen service to try and crowdfund a screening in a local cinema to them. So do spread the word about that as well.
And you know, if you're going to tweet about it, like tweet at us, but tweet at the BBC as well.
Yeah, good point. Protest tweets. Okay, thank you so much to everybody on our panel tonight, sharing your stories, and Debbie telling your stories, and the wonderful producers for helping to tell those stories. And thank you everybody for your questions, and just a round of applause, really.